It's so easy to tell when someone's lying.
You want to build advocates for yourself within your team.
My time is their time, right? I get paid to help them.
That if you're still handling stuff the way you did in 2019, you are obsolete.
Don't be afraid to tell your leaders, because if they're a good leader, they'll listen.
They're all making it up as they go. Is the actual secret, right? Like, here we are, episode 12, Disrupt Leaders. It's 30 days later. What are our triumphs? What are our takeaways? Bill, what are you excited to talk about today?
Mate, very much looking forward to getting into this one. The original session where we planned out like our first 2 weeks, first month was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And I'm very interested to see specifically with you as well as with myself, what did we do, what worked, what didn't work with our new team. It's going to be a good session, Jules. I'm ready for it.
We spoke through how we're going to plan out our first huddles, our first get to know you one-on-ones, as well as what are we going to set expectations on. Bill, what if you were to pick one thing that you think you nailed in the last 30 days, what do you think you nailed?
I think when I reflect back on the thing that I was most aiming to achieve, it was to make my team think that they were going to definitely still be supported. Because you may remember, for listeners who didn't catch the previous episode, I've taken over a very experienced team who have had a leader that had been around forever, who knew the business, knew the product inside and out. And so I wanted to make sure that they still felt that we're supported. And I think I nailed this. So we had to do a task recently where we had to pick 3 words that describe ourselves and then ask our people at work for 3 words to describe ourselves. In that instance, one of the consultants came to me and said, hey, it's not necessarily one word, but I really want to call out that there's been a couple of times where you don't know the answer and you've just upfront said that you don't know the answer, and then you've just got us the answer. And I love that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing that. It's so easy to tell when someone's lying, but with you, I just feel like I've got that trust. It was one of my goals to set that expectation that I don't know everything, but I'll make sure I get them the answer and still be that point of truth to these people, and they can still feel comfortable to come to me. And I've succeeded at that. So we're going to put that straight in the win column, I think. What about yourself, young Jules?
Yes.
Young King?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing that I've been successful at building over the last week or so, a couple of weeks especially, is just a collaboration between the team. I think they've been sharing a lot of ideas. I look at my kind of Slack channel that I built for them, and they are constantly engaging with one another. They're always asking each other stuff. It's really nice to see for a team that hadn't really worked with one another, and across departments as well. They're really good at sharing ideas. They're really open when it comes to huddles as well. I get a couple of people that are silent. You do in every group, but 90% of the people are really keen on sharing ideas. They actually come out front and they'll be really proactive around things they want to cover in huddles, things they want to do for the team going forwards. And I think that's more or less around that collaborative atmosphere that I'd set into motion even before I took over the team and set those expectations around that stuff.
Yep, I think it sounds like exactly the dream state. That's what you want it to be, right? A new team's always, even if they know each other a little bit, you've got to get them like gelling and engaging with each other and being a team. And I think that's one of the harder things to do. Is there anything that you did specifically that you think worked really well that encouraged that? Is there anything that you pinpointed? It might not be one thing, but one thing you're like, damn, I cooked there.
I think from the very first, I told them that we're all on even footing, because the change we'd gone through is that we've got teams from completely different sides of the business, more or less, and they're coming together, which means there are people that are really big, they have a lot of knowledge, one aspect of the business, but also they're going to be doing things that they're not so familiar with. So everyone's in that same boat, but they're SMEs at their own section. So I say, listen, this is a great way for you to learn another side of the business, but also show how amazing you are at the department you're already in. So come in, share your ideas, because we're coming in clueless. Even me as a leader, I have no clue about 3/4 of the processes that you guys do. There's no one better than one another. And I think because I set the expectation around, there's no kind of elite person in this team. Everyone's on the same footing. They all feel comfortable about sometimes even saying the wrong thing, because they know somebody else is probably thinking the same thing, and they're okay to be corrected because they don't feel that they're less than the other person that just happens to know a lot more about the product because they had 2 years longer working in this particular department.
Yeah, correct. You've got such a broad team. We should be learning from each other, right? I think no matter, even if you manage a team that all do the same skill, there's definitely things that people do better than other people. And I think encouraging the team to share that, work through that. And it's something that I think probably not enough leaders do, is empower the people to feel confident in themselves, to have that voice. Some consultants will feel, even though they know the product inside and out, even though they know they crush it, they're still so scared of just actually vocalizing that. And I think creating that culture, that environment where they're just fine to do that is really important. I'll ask this question. Is there anything specific that you think has surprised you in the last week or so? Anything that you weren't expecting that's copped you ripping? You were like, damn, that's out of nowhere.
I wouldn't say completely surprised me, but I think there was a couple of characters. I think we go back to a few episodes. We're talking about let people prove to you who they are. I think you were making the point, the last thing around the handovers and using that to inform yourself a little bit, but don't let that color your whole opinion of who someone is. Specifically, there are a couple of people in the team that were painted in a bad light originally. I've done what I consider to be not the complex leadership things. This is not me patting myself on the back. This is me just saying I don't.
You
think
did the
I've put that
basics.
much effort in.
Like I did team leader stuff. Yeah,
turned up and did team leader stuff. They've already had such a positive interaction with myself. They've been interacting quite well with the rest of the team. They've been progressing week on week as well since I've took over in terms of their stats. I think to myself, it's amazing just doing the little 1% of things. You prove to them that you're there for them. Another thing I did for this person was that they were quite interested. They were experienced working in legal offices before, like so pretty much this person used to run a legal office before moving into state, I believe. And so took this job as their first job that they got, but they're interested in getting back into that. Within the first couple of weeks, I already met a contact in our company's legal department, got an opportunity to chat with one of the people now. And she was so happy about that. She was so happy that within a short space of time, I proved some of those things that you talk about, those quick wins. That took me not much effort. Email.
You said it literally 2 seconds. I've got someone that's interested.
Intranet search. Who's in the legal department in our company? Hey, mate, there's a person in my team that's really interested in having a chat and getting into your team. They have this experience. I got them to send me their resume so I can send them off to them. And I said, hey, they would love to have a chat to you about this. And they were really good, responded, bang. Within a week and a half, they were already meeting with these people and they were super chuffed about that. And I think that got me a proponent for the long run. And I think that's a lesson for new leaders out there. You want to build advocates for yourself within your team. And especially if you take the person that might be a little more prickly from the outset and make them your strongest advocate, everyone else will see and fall in line as well. It's a great way to build a great culture within your team really quickly as well.
The thing that surprised me the most is how much the perception of the people that I've taken on is that they weren't really developed or coached. Whether they were or not, I'm not fit to speak to that. I know everyone feels like approach things differently, but much like you're saying there, you only did like the basics. All you did is send an email and this person was like, wow, Julian's God. It felt a little bit like that for me as well. Like I had a conversation with everyone one-on-one where I asked all the questions, set a few standards and expectations, and then just asked what they wanted to do with their career, asked what they like about their role, what they don't like, why they want the thing that they want. And it was interesting that a few of them said it's the first career conversation they've had in ages. One in particular came to me and said she'd multiple times told her previous leader what she wanted to do, and multiple times the previous leader didn't really do anything with it. And she very much felt like the leader was holding her back. That surprised me. But then more recently, I've got into my first real one-on-one. And one of the things that I've done is mark an interaction with each person, like a live there and then. So we do live chat and calls. I've picked with the people. We've sat down, we've read it together, we've marked it together. They filled out the form to mark it, whatever. And most of them had never done that before. It's interesting that these people have been working and doing a thing held to a standard, but then at no point has anyone actually taken them through the standard of what they're expected to do. And that to me is mind-blowing. Like how you can say you've got to achieve a thing, but don't tell them the thing actually is that they've got to achieve.
Analogy that I use sometimes is just like going for a driver's license test, but suddenly you have to do it in a boat out in open sea and there's a hurricane coming as well. That is essentially what they've done to their people, right? Because they've gone, you don't know what rules you're living life by, but we will measure you by these rules. Come end of year, trust me.
Oh yeah,
these arbitrary rules will be placed.
But we haven't taken you through or discussed. And so I found that quite interesting. That's something that surprised me a little bit. But much like your story, it's made my life very easy because everyone immediately thinks I'm the go. Like the fact that I've immediately come in, arranged a few meetings, much the same thing, just been like, one person was interested in a particular department. I have a meeting in that department every week where they run through all the big things that they're doing. And I was like, I'll see if you can come. She's coming this week or next week. Oh, this is the best. I didn't even send an email. I did less than you. I sent a single Slack message being like, is this all good? So yeah, I think that struggled me a little bit. If we're talking about things that have gone well, it has gone incredibly well. So between that and one of the other things that I really wanted to do was set up a regular routine in terms of like my team meetings and team huddles. And so that's what we've done. So on Monday, I run a skills workshop on a thing that I think we need to work on as a team. On Wednesday, we review this week's changes as a business. And on Friday, fun, pure vibes only fun. And between, I think, the coaching sessions and then the few skills workshops, they've already started to see immediate benefits. Last week was our third week and we had our best week to date. We've just improved week on week. Already seeing a bunch of improvements when I'm reading their chats. And I'll be honest, like the skills workshops, I ran a thing on how to ask effective questions and what kind of effective questions. For the people listening at home, I'll tell you the workshop. I got everyone to ask me questions. So when I had to keep score, they could only for the first round ask me yes or no questions. And I was a fictional character and I had to guess who I was. And I think I picked Homer Simpson for the first one. Obviously with yes or no's, it takes forever. Then I'm like, you can ask any open questions, same thing again, as many as you want. They still go roundabout with their questioning, but a couple closed questions sneak in and get a bit better. Then I had a conversation around really deep killer questions, explain me, you can ask something really broad and then get more narrow. We have a third round. And by the third round, they literally get it into your questions. They're just like, tell me about yourself. And then you spill a bunch of information. So that was the game that literally something as simple as that, like it took 15 minutes. I did zero prep work for it, but the improvements it's made to the consultants just because we've put that time and effort in. And I think for my guys, and this is for the people at home, maybe, you just need to make sure that you're not letting your more experienced people slide. It's for you, Jules. You've got a very new team. They need to be focused. Whereas the experienced guys, they know what they're doing. They'll be all right. And I think that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. I've got a couple people that have been in the departments for quite a while. In another kind of world, they would actually be in your team, I think, to be honest with you. For whatever reason, they probably didn't get put into those teams. I've taken that very similar approach with those people. It's funny how the more tenured people have less of a grasp of some of the basic skills as opposed to the more... Yeah, correct. And either they're not taken through it or I think the biggest enemy to experienced people is assumption. I think lots of leaders, lots of senior management make the assumption that they know how to do the basics. But the reality is, they probably haven't done the basics in a very long time because they've just been left alone. Or, as you said, they've never shown the basics in the first place. And I think the other thing people don't understand is as companies get bigger, styles and demands of clients evolve as well. So they might have at one point been doing everything the company asked for. But life evolves and a year in the business world might as well be a decade because it can really change what people want time and time again. Like in the last 5 years alone, we've had COVID, we've had work from home, we've had so many different changes across many industries that have changed the way we interact with one another. That if you're still handling stuff the way you did in 2019, you are obsolete. Like it is a much different landscape than it used to be. I don't think people put enough importance on that. So you get the experienced people, they go, this person's been taking phone calls for 3 years. Surely
know what they're doing.
They know everything. They know all the processes. But it's the soft skills that they lose first. Because also, when you've dealt with thousands of clients like they have, you lose meaning to every interaction. Like every interaction is just a little bit less valuable because it's another interaction in the 3 years worth of interactions.
It's one of those things that you see a lot actually with new staff when they start to get a little bit experienced. But I do think that when someone's brand spanking new, they might make one or two mistakes. And then there's a period where they're really good because they're still checking their resources and they're really laser focused. And then I think when they've been there and they've had that many interactions, it's easy for bad habits to slip in and then it just compounds over time. You always notice it with new recruits, they improve and then they dip in quality. All of a sudden they start going to keep some mistakes because they stop being so diligent. And I think that really slides in with the more experienced people. They focus so much on the high end stuff that they let a lot of the low end stuff go, which obviously causes a few dramas.
I want to go into maybe some of the things that probably didn't work or like slightly there. I don't want to over exaggerate things, but I think for me, there's a couple of things where I probably could have communicated a little bit better. Set expectations a little bit better maybe, or it just didn't possibly land. Now, the thing I want to really stress to a lot of leaders out there, you can't get everyone with every message, right? Like sometimes you might say a message going, mate, I cooked. This was the greatest message delivered with as much gusto and leadership capability as possible. But sometimes you get one or two in the crowd that might not sink in for whatever reason. So it is really important to go and close the loop maybe a week later, a couple of days later. Go, hey, just double checking, did you get that? Especially if it's a more complex thing that you've just taken your consultants through. In my case, I made that mistake where I went through everyone, like was not very happy. And I saw a few of them take on the expectations I set like straight away. So I was like, oh, good, team's got this. And like a week later, there was one of the guys who kind of overstepped their mark a little bit. I had to be a bit of have a stronger conversation, a tougher conversation. But then they were like, oh, sorry, I kind of misunderstood what you said. And I took that on the chin. I was like, okay, fair enough. I might have miscommunicated that. Here's my expectations, drew a line in the sand, and they've been pretty good from then onwards. And it was a really good moment for both of us. I think you found it helpful to see that I was okay to say, I got that wrong. I probably didn't make that clear enough or communicate that well enough. This is what it is from here. Turned a moment of weakness into a moment of strength for both of us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Phil? Did you have any similar moments or anything you felt? Oh.
There's probably one thing, and it's one of the things I've stressed earlier. One of my goals was to make sure the team really felt I'm there to support them. And that comes across in a few different ways. One of the things that I was very clear is my time is their time, right? I get paid to help them. So if they need anything, they don't have to wait for a one-on-one. They don't have to wait for a huddle. They could just come to me and be like, Bill, this is a problem. Right. And I felt like I'd stressed that pretty clearly. I also felt like I'd gone about closing the loop on that for a lot of people. And they were coming to me with an issue. Maybe some leave was programmed in wrong, just small niggly things. And I was like getting on it. I had a bunch of the team being like, oh, you're so helpful. But it's interesting to me that they did that sort of small things. Yesterday, we had a team huddle and I was like, trying to know if anything's going on. And then one person said one small thing about a particular area of the business. And then it just blew out into this huge thing that had been eating people alive. Because when we changed teams, a lot of the business restructure, and there's a bunch of things that have been slipping and it was like really negatively impacting them. And it had been negatively impacting them for 2 weeks. And yet no one had said anything, despite the fact that I'd caught up with them all individually and asked if they're okay. They just didn't want to vocalize it for whatever reason and just been suffering in silence till one person said something. And so that was a thing for me because I felt like I'd communicated that I was there for anything. And I also felt that I communicated pretty well that I'll get on it straight away. And I say annoying, but I said it to them yesterday. The thing they asked me was so easy to fix. I had a meeting with that department every morning anyway. The meeting starts at 9, by 9:02 it was resolved. And then today it didn't happen and everyone's super happy and chuffed. And I'm just like, you guys sat on that for 2 weeks. You could have told me 2 weeks ago and this would have been solved. So next time, just tell me immediately. I think the positive from that is obviously there were some things that were comfortable to come to me with. There were obviously some things that they were clearly not. And I think it was maybe those more difficult things that they really didn't want to have those tougher conversations. Now it's been had and they've seen immediate answers. The amount of time the business is open from me being told to it being solved was like 30 minutes. I think next time they'll be super comfortable to be like, this is really pissing me off. Can you fix it? Much like you said, the thing that didn't go well has led to something going quite well because the way that it's been responded to. And I think that's a key lesson to take away from that.
I think some people just take a while to warm up to, and if they haven't had a certain style of leader for a while, they take a while to warm up to the fact that they can be ultra honest. I have to keep reiterating to my team that I don't treat any of this stuff like it's my baby. If it makes it easier for you, for me, for the business, say it. All I can do is suggest it to senior management or whatever needs to enact that change.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important as a leader that you continue doing that. And I think it's important to show as a leader that you are seeing some of these things as well. Look at trends and bring up some of these things yourself. Hey guys, I've noticed this happening. Does that annoy you? And they'll go, yeah, it annoys me. Cool. I've already started reaching out to change that. If they know you're looking at little annoyances to make it better, they go, oh, he's looking for this. Let's tell him more about what we're struggling with. It builds that open atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think to add on to that part of the conversation as well, yes, you should be looking into those things. You should be looking for trends and looking for little annoyances or uncovering them in your conversations and trying to fix them. But I also think, and this is something I did yesterday that I'll now do the next time I take over a new team, whenever that is let them know that I'm like not be present. And I also don't do the role that they do. I can't see everything. I don't have oversight over every little thing that's good or bad. And I also, because I'm not in that moment doing that role, I don't actually know. I think there's like a burden of assumed knowledge. Right? They know that this thing is very clearly irritating. So they assume it's very obvious to everybody that this thing is clearly irritating. But in actual fact, it's not because I don't deal with it. I don't even know that it's happening, let alone that I'm dealing with it. But I think that's one of the things that I'll stress to my team in moving forwards and to the next team that I take, that just because you know that it's happening, don't assume that I do and just tell me. And if worse, what's going to happen? Either A, I'll fix it, or B, I'll give you the reason why. And either of those things is a positive thing.
Yeah, I was talking to someone in the office and they were talking about executives and like CEOs and stuff. And they were saying, one day I hope to be experienced enough and knowledgeable enough to do a job like that. And I said, it's funny, like having dealt with pretty senior people, like I've even had conversations with CEOs in previous businesses, right? they're all making it up as they go. Is the actual secret, right? Like, yes, they have some expertise. They have some people under them that are quite knowledgeable. But the true strength of a lot of these people is that they're really good at getting under people that are really good together. And that's, I think, a lot of the thing. You think Jeff Bezos knows every part of Amazon? He doesn't know the supply chain management that goes into Amazon warehouse. And he does not know that. I can guarantee you right now, there's some guy there who's smarter than him that knows way more about that system, and they're going to build. But he can still dictate what his expectations are to that person, and that person can tell him, hey, that's realistic, Jeff, or whatever. Yeah. But I think there's this perception that people in leadership know every detail thing, and you're waiting for them to save you. And in a lot of ways, I think we can help you with a lot of those things. But you're in the grind. You've got to tell us if any ingredients are missing, and we can help you with it. But at the end of the day, you need to be open with your manager. If your manager hasn't built an open culture, that's feedback to your manager as well. I just don't feel safe sharing in huddles, safe sharing in one-on-ones when things aren't going right, because nothing really happens. Or if something does happen, it's not really in our favor. Share those sentiments with your leader as well.
I think if you feel like you're in that spot that you're passing your stuff up the chain and it's not going anywhere and nothing's been resolved, tell that person. If that person doesn't do anything with that, tell the person above that person. And if that person does nothing about it, maybe look for another job.
How to get out straight away.
Yeah, I think we're at that point, it's time to jump and abandon ship.
I think going back to wins as well, one thing that has really landed well for my team, and it's one thing that where I've been asked now by my manager to go through with my immediate leadership team as well. I know you ran that as well, Bill, in your huddle. And it's one thing I'm going to take through the rest of the company next week as well. But like group of 4 or 5 leaders in our department, I shared that today, actually. That has landed really well. My team picked out values that they want to be known for, essentially what our team brand is going to be. So we picked like 5 things. What I've been doing to really integrate that into our everyday is whenever I get good customer feedback, if it ties into any of those values, I will put those 2 values in the message and then the actual customer feedback. So well done, John, great, customer feedback. But on top, these are our 2 values that this feedback is in relation to. So if some stakeholder says, hey, mate, this person helped me out, he was really fantastic. And then I'll put that in there as well. And this is the values that we're doing. Or if I see 2 team members really collaborate, I'll put that in as well. I've been putting that in there so they know, hey, Jules wasn't just blowing steam at the start of our journey. He actually wants these to be our values and we should start living by them. It's funny because now I get messages from them going, hey, Jules, like, here's this, can you read this chat? One of our values is progression, right? And it's way better than what I did last week. They'll put it in there and in a message. And it tells me it's starting to get more entrenched in what they do. They're starting to believe the values they chose themselves 4 weeks ago. And that's really heartening to see as it works really well. And I think it's a good exercise. I can't recommend it enough for any person to run through. Bill was talking at the beginning of this episode around the fact that we did this exercise. We had to choose 3 things that we want to be known for, then ask our team what they think of us or what they think our brand is and whether that kind of matches up and what we need to do to narrow that gap. I think that was a really powerful exercise for me too.
I reckon they must listen to the Shop Leaders podcast, the people that presented this thing.
They must,
because they literally just stole your ideas, my friend. And I was like, how dare they? But that session was really useful. And there was one other piece of it that I really liked, actually. And I think it's something that's also, I think if you do the brand as a team, do it as an individual, what do you want your brand to be? The bit that I really liked is you had to pick one of those 3 values and tell the other person one of those 3 values. And then they had to give you some kind of feedback or advice around how to be more of that value. But the deal was that you weren't allowed to argue your case at all. They would tell you the feedback and you would say, thank you. And that would be the end of it. Yeah. I found that really powerful because I ended up getting paired up with the senior manager in the room, like one of the big dogs. I went first, told him my thing, and it was really useful. Gave me a bunch of advice on like getting advice from someone that I don't really get to spend any time with. It was super useful to me. It really made me question the value I'd picked and what I actually meant and what I actually wanted from it. It's fantastic. But then we had a bit of an awkward time because I had to do his. And this was interesting. And we talked about managing up, and I felt he gives me his word, and I'm like, bro, it's time to live your truth. You can't keep going on the Shop Leaders podcast and telling people to manage up and then sit here and back down like a coward. Just for the people at home, he's one of the values that he picked is he wanted to be seen as motivating, but he felt that he didn't currently get seen as a bit too much, maybe a taskmaster, someone who's too focused on numbers and results and not growing his people. And I sat there and I'm like, yeah, kinda, to be honest. So I perceive you. And I think that was what I said. I literally just said, look, being candid, that's definitely how I perceive you. I gave that feedback. But I also gave the feedback that I realized that it just wasn't that I was spending enough time. We spent 3 minutes actually talking about me and I got heaps from it. It's not that he can't be that thing. It's just that he isn't that thing in the setting. So I think he should spend more time with his leaders. Interestingly enough, he said that he's actually going to start doing that. And so he's recently traveled for work and he started doing a few skip level meetings to do exactly that. So don't be afraid to tell your leaders, because if they're a good leader, they'll listen, right? I think a lot of people get really nervous about passing that feedback up the chain. But at the end of the day, if your leader doesn't take it on, or if your leader just completely dismisses you, that says a lot more about them. A good leader wants that negative feedback as much as they want positive feedback. Wouldn't you agree?
Leaders aren't perfect. I
mean, I am, but
people disrupt leaders now, but leaders in general. Leaders aren't perfect. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts when you get into leadership, and we all have our styles and we all have our viewpoints on what we think is right and wrong, but that might not marry up with what's actually needed. I think that's the key thing you've got to think about. Look, I told this before, no one's the kind of cartoon villain thinking I'm going to ruin someone's day today. They're thinking they're doing something in everyone's best interest, or at least in the business's best interest. And I think some people just mix those things up. We've been quite fervent that people's best interest is the business's best interest. But for a long time, and I still would say to this day, there's lots of companies, lots of people that don't essentially believe that. They might believe that's good to keep your people happy, but I think they believe that keeping the business happy is a number one priority.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's a bit backwards. If you've got people that are happy, they will make the business happy. I think you make them happy, they make the business happy. I think it's the other way around. But it's amazing how people go, oh yeah, if as long as I keep the metrics in order and make sure I keep a couple of senior execs in order, everything's going to tick along. But yeah, you're probably not going anywhere, the actual truth, when you do that kind of stuff.
I think you see that kind of behavior in a lot of businesses where they prioritize the wrong thing. If you focus on the wrong KPI, I think you see that a fair bit where you focus on this KPI, but this one actually causes this one. And so I think it's pretty prevalent. Was there anything else that happened to you that you wanted to talk about before we wrap this one up?
I think what I wanted to chat about is what we want to do over the next month or so. We might do a catch up, maybe not a month, but maybe we do another in another quarter or something. But so I think for me, I want to progress continuously myself. So I think I've built some of those things in place that everyone's getting a little bit better every week, every day. That's what I want to continue building with our team. Beyond that, I want them to get a lot more exposure to leadership things as well. I think I've got some really good people in my team that can get into more leadership roles in the future. So I want to give them the exposure a lot more this time around in terms of my leadership, get them run more huddles, get them more involved in larger projects. Today, I've got a couple of people involved with you, Bill. You might not know it. You've got a Slack channel coming through, through to you.
I've got so many Slack channels with all the extra.
I
accidentally became important at work, and I'm not happy about it. I have so much work to do these days. I don't know how it happened. I slipped, I fell, and now I'm important, and I hate it.
Oh, that's what happens when you're a cold killer. That's
what happens, dog.
When you're too good.
You know what they call me?
People want to know.
They call me NyQuil.
Yeah, what do they call you?
They call me NyQuil. I'm a cold killer.
Okay, cool. There we go. He's not even a dad, guys. He's coming out with a dad joke. I'm the dad. Just letting everyone know, I'm the one with the 3-year-old. Bill's got no kids, and he's coming out with the dad jokes.
It's got to be done.
Okay. Yeah, anyway,
I think I've derailed this conversation.
We were talking about what we want over the next few months. I think more of those projects, I think progression is a major thing. I would love to look back in about 3 to 6 months and see some of these guys move on to other roles. Some of them are really ready to go. Yeah. And I think if they don't get opportunities in the next 6 months, I think it might make or break for some of them. That's what I really want.
I actually don't believe in progressing my people, because if I do, they'll leave and I'll have no people in my team.
Why would you do that?
In progressing, like developing my people. It sounds terrible, bro. Heap shit. No. So that is a harken back to our last podcast. If you didn't check out episode 11, please do. It's very interesting to hear that. On a personal level, I am on quite a large project at the minute, and I'm looking forward to getting that. It should be finished at the end of this month, and then I'll be so much more free. One of my major commitments of the last few weeks is to do a lot more observations than I've been doing, and I'm just struggling to find the time. I'm not across my people as I would like to be. I'm probably a little bit further behind, and it's not within my control as much as I'd like to say that it is. But that's okay. We're working on that. The main thing I want to work on with my team is developing them and tidying up a lot of those small things. I had the first coaching session with almost everyone. I think I've got one more tomorrow. Will be the last person I haven't coached again, like a second time this fortnight. What I really want to do is make sure we don't fall to the rubber band principle. For those of you at home, you take a rubber band and you stretch it and let it go, it goes back to the same size. You have to stretch it, keep stretching it and hold it. That's much what coaching is like. You've done that initial coaching session and we've set a few actions, we've set a few goals. I'm super excited next fortnight to get into those and be like, okay, how do we go? How do we do? How do we get on? I've been pretty loose. I've set a lot of commitments and it's, you need to send me 2 examples. A couple of people have sent me some examples and a couple haven't. In previous times, I've followed up with people, but I haven't done that with this group. I'm going to wait until the next one I'm on and be like, you said you'd send me some examples and you haven't. What's going on? They're experienced consultants. Shouldn't have to be chasing people up. So I think that's a key thing for me. And then just over the next couple weeks, just focusing on those same behaviors until we've got them like absolutely locked in now. So I think that's me.
I had to do that with one of my consultants. I told them, okay, how long left in the day? They had 2 hours left. I said, okay, how many times are we going to do this? They said 10 out of the 12 chats they're going to have. And I was like, oh, sweet. Okay. Like, how are you going to let me know? You're gonna say, and then you ticked around till 5 o'clock or whatever. I got nothing. Next morning, nothing. So I walked up to their desk. They happened to work in the office. And I just sat down, stared in their face. And they were like, what's up? And I was like, forgetting something? And they're like, forgetting what? I see how it is. What did you say you were going to do yesterday? And they were like, oh shit. They're like, here, 10, oh yeah, I'll send them to you. I'm like, don't send them. What happened to the chat you took yesterday?
I didn't realize we were people that don't follow our commitments around here. It tells me everything about you only as a person. I've heard it all. That's fine.
So I was like, well, mate, when I make commitments, I actually want you to stick to them. I don't make them up out of nowhere.
One learning I've had with this, just very relevant to this before we wrap up. Newer consultants, if you're like, how many times are you going to do this today? They're like, I'm going to do it 15. Okay, how many of those 15 do you reckon you could do it? New consultants always lowball me. 7. And I'm like, 7 out of 15. You just told me it's super important. You do 7. Senior experienced consultants always say, I think it's probably because I'm focusing on basic behaviors, right? And I'm focusing on things that on paper, they go, I'm a weapon, I'm a monster. I can definitely do that 15 times. You can, but you're not doing it now. I'm on struggles getting that message across. I believe you can do this 15 out of 15 times. But I don't think you're going to. So it's really trying to ground them and hit that realistic part of the SMART goal is something that's a current struggle.
Do you ask them what will get in the way?
Yeah, I like that question. Most of the conversation around the basics are, okay, what's getting in the way? Why are you not doing it all the time? But very key question, very common question. Is there anything else we wanted to add before we wrap up?
I think that's about it. Hopefully you got something out of this. Let us know, have you just taken over a team? Have you had some similar experiences? Did you try anything we suggested first episode 10, I believe, around some of the things we tried in our first week? Maybe it worked for you. I'll guarantee you, try some of the values things. And Bill just ran us leaders through at our current business today. He had the best presentation we've had in eons, Bill. Of course, we practice every weekend delivering. So by now, if we can't deliver, God help us.
I actually feel I was better than I am here as well. I was on today. I was in my bag.
I think I put you too much at ease. Maybe I need to put you under pressure.
Fix him. But
I do. Maybe if I told you that before, you would have cocked it. But he ran a great thing around taking your people through how you mark their interactions. That's a really great tip. Take your people through how you mark their interactions. They get to know what you're looking out for. They understand what the standards are. I think if you take nothing away today, just take away those 2 things of values, make sure you really build those in, and also let people know what the standards are, because you're going to hold them to it at the end of the bloody year, aren't you? So you might as well let them know now.
That's exactly it. If you got something useful out of today, please drop us a follow, drop a subscribe. It helps the channel out an absolute ton. And eventually we'll get to the point where you can get your own snazzy Disrupt Leaders t-shirts if we end up going off enough. So please do help us out. Have a great day. Thank you.